Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a hidden layer of human communication, one that works way below our conscious radar. It's a language of absolute stillness and tiny millimeter-scale movements that can expose a deep lie, totally command a room, or even influence someone's actions without them having a clue why.
So let's just jump right in with a pretty high-stakes medical mystery. This comes from the incredible work of psychologist Paul Ekman, who was dealing with a literal life-or-death question from a group of doctors in training.
Okay, so meet Mary. She'd been admitted to the hospital after 3 very serious suicide attempts. Now, during an interview partway through her stay, she's telling everyone she feels so much better, that she's no longer thinking about suicide at all. She's smiling, she's optimistic, and she asks for a weekend pass to go home. You know, a huge step on the road back to a normal life. And you know what? On the surface, she was totally convincing. The doctors, they believed her. But later, when Ekman and his team analyzed the film of that interview, frame by frame, that's when they saw it. In the split second right before her big, optimistic smile, for just 2 frames of film, a look of absolute, soul-crushing anguish just flashed across her face. And that revealed the truth. She was lying. She still fully intended to take her own life. That flash of anguish, it actually has a name. It's a micro-expression. It's this tiny, completely involuntary leak of our true feelings. It's like a crack in the mask that we all present to the world. And the crazy part is, it happens faster than our conscious minds can even register. I mean, really think about that speed for a second. 1/25th of a second. That's faster than a single frame of a movie. See, the thing is, it's just a biological fact that our real emotions will leak out, even when we're trying our absolute hardest to hide them. But how in the world do you ever spot something that fast? Well, to even have a chance of noticing a signal that tiny, the background noise has to be almost zero. And this is the whole principle behind what we're going to call the baseline of stillness. It's really the art of creating a super high contrast environment with your own body, your own presence. And this is not just some ancient philosophy, okay? It's an incredibly powerful communication strategy. Masters of influence, from charismatic monarchs all the way to elite actors, they've always known that real power doesn't come from a bunch of frantic motion. It comes from a deep, commanding stillness. So this is the contrast we're really talking about here. The high noise state, it's just full of static, right? You're fidgeting, you're saying and ah, just wasted energy everywhere, it's chaotic. But in contrast, the high definition state is a pure, clean signal. The body is anchored, gestures are deliberate and minimal, and silence is actually used as a tool. One of these gets tuned out, the other one forces people to tune in. And I mean, just think about the sheer range of this skill. You've got actors like Mads Mikkelsen who use what's called visual silence, basically forcing you to lean in and read every tiny twitch on his face. Or think about historical duelists. They'd hold this quiet, motionless guard to hide their intentions, which would make their opponent incredibly vigilant. Even our ancestral hunters learned a stillness so deep that any tiny micro-movement could signal complex information to the rest of the group, all without ever alerting their prey. So this baseline of stillness, it does something really powerful. It creates this incredible tension. It's like this slow, steady, click, click, click climb of a roller coaster. It's getting the observer's brain ready for the drop. The climb. That's the absolute stillness. It builds up all this expectation, and it forces the people watching you to become more sensitive, to look for any signal. And then, the drop. That's the tiny, millimetric shift, a slight narrowing of the eyes, a tiny tilt of the head, and in that high-stakes quiet, that tiny little motion delivers a massive psychological shock. You know, there is no better modern example of this than the work of the psychological illusionist Darren Brown. In one segment he did, called Mirror Man, he literally shows how you can turn a complete stranger on the street into a kind of sleeper agent, using nothing but this principle of stillness and micro-motion. Okay, get this. Here's how powerful this sequence is. First, he establishes a baseline. He secretly matches his target's posture and breathing. That's called pacing. Then comes the drop, a micro-lead, just a subtle rubbing of his own eye. And the target unconsciously mirrors it. Brown then escalates with a yawn, which, you guessed it, the target also mirrors. So now the target is highly suggestible, they're feeling sleepy, they walk past a shop display, and on some environmental cue, just pick up a television and walk away with it. A quiet baseline, a tiny lead, and a massive behavioral payoff. It's wild. So this really reveals the scale of presence. You know, big, flapping macro gestures, they're obvious, they're low definition, and we can easily tune them out. Now, facial expressions, they're better. We read them as genuine emotion.
But it's the smallest signals, these millimetric shifts in weight, the micro tensions in your jaw that have the deepest impact. They trigger these instinctual responses, like awe or even fear. Okay, so if this is a trainable skill and not some kind of innate, magical charisma that you're either born with or not, how do you actually practice it? How do you go from being high noise to high definition? Well, it starts with a three-part protocol. First, you have to lower your own noise floor with something called the statue of salt drill. And the goal here isn't just to be still, it's to eliminate the internal urge to fidget. Second, you practice the millimetric shift. So while appearing totally motionless, you shift your center of gravity by just 2 millimeters. It creates what feels like a pressure wave that other people can actually feel. And finally, you master the delayed echo. Hold absolute stillness for 3 seconds longer than is comfortable before you answer a question. When you finally move, that first micromotion becomes the main event.
Now, I get it. That whole protocol, it might sound a little intense for just starting out in everyday life. So let's bring this back and make it immediately practical. We can start building this skill with a really simple psychological framework. It's called habit stacking. And the whole idea is to link a new habit you want to build onto an existing one you already do without thinking. As psychiatrist Dr. Paul Weigel explains, our brains basically run on autopilot. Habit stacking just gives that autopilot a new, simple instruction on a path that's already traveling every single day.
So your own presence habit stack could look something like this. After you pour your morning coffee, you practice 10 seconds of what's called ocular softening. You're just relaxing the tiny muscles around your eyes. And after you find yourself just waiting in line somewhere, you practice the statue of salt drill for just 30 seconds. See? By starting really small and just aiming for consistency, these tiny little changes start to build momentum. You start to take back control of the signals you're broadcasting to the world.
Because ultimately, here's the thing. You are always communicating, whether you mean to or not. Your stillness, your fidgets, the way you breathe, it is all broadcasting a story. High definition presence just gives you the tools to make sure that story is a conscious choice.